All right. Hello, marketing class. Welcome back to 17.2. Let's go over the objectives for chapter 17.2. So, we're going to be learning about the 5 elements of promotion, otherwise known as the promotional mix. Also, the objectives is how and why do organizations issue press releases? And third, describe and differentiate push versus pull promotional strategies. So let's get right into it. Again, chapter 17 is all about promotion and the promotional mix. So let's get started. All right, the promotional mix. So, what is the promotional mix? So, there are specific promotional elements that are chosen by different organizations for any given product or service. So, this is known as the promotional mix. And of course, it depends on what industry you're in, what product you're using. It's going to depend. What you're going to use to promote that product is really going to depend on a lot of different things. So, there are a certain amount of tools in a marketer's toolbox that they're going to use to promote their products. And it's called the promotional mix. We're going to learn what those elements are. I will provide a link to this video, and you guys can watch that after. So there are 5 basic elements of promotion that companies use. The first one, we learned all about it in chapters 12 through 15, and that's personal selling. So personal selling, that's basically sales reps generating, maintaining contact with prospects. That's your front line. Those are your people actually hitting the ground and actually talking to your customers and selling them one-on-one or small groups or however it happens. But actual sales reps who are given quotas and who are responsible for selling your product. And imagine it. Let me ask you, what kinds of products just don't get sold with individual sales reps? So lots of them, right? Have you ever bought, paper clips or scrunchies or whatever from, an individual salesperson? No, it just doesn't happen. That doesn't work for every product. So personal selling is one of the tools in a marketer's tool belt, or an organization's tool belt, that is, to help them generate sales. So that's one element of promotion. And one of the reasons that things like scrunchies and staples and commodities, low cost items like that are not sold using personal selling and individual sales reps is because it is one of the, I would say it's probably the most costly form of promotion. TV commercials are very, very expensive as well, but when you get down to the nitty gritty and you start calculating, the per touch or number of people that are actually reached by your promotion, individual sales reps are probably the most expensive way to sell a product. It works the best for some products. Other ones, it does not make sense. It's one of the costliest forms. That's an important thing to know. So the second one, pretty obvious one, advertising. Some people will confuse marketing with advertising. Advertising is a small part of marketing and what marketers do, but some people just say, oh, marketing, that's all about advertising. Those are the people who make TV commercials and put things in the newspapers, etc. Obviously, you guys know at this point that that's not the case, but advertising is one of the elements of promotion. So how are we going to define advertising? These are paid, non-personal promotions via media outlets. So these are things like TV commercials, newspaper, billboards, any sort of thing you can think of where you actually pay to put your product, on the side of a bus. You can put it on a park bench in New York City. All the stuff you see, like on the train, on public transit. These are all ways that companies advertise, and that's one of the main ways that companies promote their products. The third kind, or the third type of, or the third element of the promotional mix is direct marketing. And now this is slightly different from advertising in that when you're advertising, you're going through a media outlet. You're going through, like a newspaper or a TV channel, things like that, and you're actually paying to put your product in front of people. When you're doing direct marketing, you're actually yourself internally you're identifying and finding who your target customers are, and you're reaching them individually. So you're getting their phone numbers, you're calling them, you're getting their email addresses, you're finding them on social media, things like that. That's direct marketing. You're actually pushing it out on your own. You're not going through, a paid intermediary. So this is targeted advertising, usually direct mail. You can also send things in the mail. I mean, ask your parents sometimes, how much junk mail do they get, in any given week? You'll get things from all sorts of companies, asking them to buy their products. And I don't know how many credit card applications I get in a month. It's at least three or four, maybe one a week I get asking me to get a new credit card, and get loans. I don't know why everyone thinks that I need to get another mortgage, but clearly someone out there thinks I do, and it's caught on because I get a lot of ads for getting new loans, home equity loans, things like that. So those kinds of things, that's direct marketing. Targeted mail, it's either direct mail, snail mail, whatever you call it, actually in your mailbox, or it's email. I'm sure you guys get plenty of that. The fourth type of promotion is public relations. Companies, large companies anyways, have their own public relations departments, or people at least who are in charge of public relations. When I worked at State Street, they have an entire team of people who are dedicated to just watching the news wire and responding to anything that hits the Wall Street Journal, and people getting ahead of things and posting press releases and things like that. But public relations, and the whole purpose of public relations is to influence the opinion and to create a favorable public image. And whether it be a person or a product or services. So imagine the president of the United States. He's got an entire public relations team. He's got people who are looking out for stories coming out about him, and he wants, to get in front of stories, and he wants to spin stories in a certain way that make him seem like he's right. There's a political science at play here, very much. But companies do this as well. So if something, bad happens, like we had issues where we would have, like, one thing you probably no one would ever read on the Wall Street Journal. We had one executive who just stopped showing up for work one day. Didn't show up. Everyone's like, hey, where the heck is this guy? And after, a couple of days, finally we realized that I guess he just wasn't happy there anymore. Something happened. I won't even get into what it was, but he decided he didn't want to work there anymore, so he wasn't going to show up, which is not something that top executives should be doing at that level. So we, of course, issue a press release and say, we've decided, to part ways mutually with this person. And, after a long career, we want to thank this person for doing everything that, he or she has done. But in reality, it's a public relations ploy. We don't want people on the outside to think that we're scrambling, saying, "Oh my God, where is this guy? And now what are we going to do?" Because we've just lost a key leader in our one of our departments. So that's public relations. And then finally, sales promotions. This one's a little bit cheesy. The definition, anyways, this is extremely important in the promotional mix. But sales promotions are defined as basically everything else. Everything that doesn't fall into one of the other four buckets is called a sales promotion. That includes things like sales. If you have your buy one, get one sale, if you have coupons, or you set up samples in a store, or, great big displays in retail shops. These are your sales promotions. It's kind of the everything else category. So those are the 5 basic elements of promotion, otherwise known as the promotional mix. So to get into a little more detail about press releases, these are a very key thing used by organizations. So what is a press release? A press release is basically an announcement that's sent out to media outlets. So in companies like the one I used to work for, they know people, all right? They know the people at the Wall Street Journal and all the major, New York Times and all that stuff. And what they'll do is they'll actually push out content and say, like, for example, when that guy kind of stopped coming to work and he was a key player and everybody knows who he is, they had to send a press release saying, oh, this person we've decided to part ways because eventually it's going to come out. And then if we don't get ahead of it and we don't post why it happened, or at least our version of why, then it's up to other people to really convey the story. And that's not what you want. So by definition, it's a way that companies announce newsworthy developments. And I use air quotes again, like I do sometimes, because that's really the eye of the beholder. So newsworthy is defined by the source, which in this case is the company. And what's newsworthy to a company? I mean, imagine it. If you are an organization, what are the things that you want to put out to the outside world about yourself? Inevitably, it's all good things, right? When you launch a product, you want to make it seem like a newsworthy event. When a new CEO is going to take the helm, you want to make it seem like a great thing and not a bad thing, like someone's getting fired. I mean, these are, again, there's a lot of politicking involved, and companies issue these things very strategically. And these things also, the intent is to create publicity as well. I mean, you want to send newsworthy items to places like the Wall Street Journal, and you want them to pick them up, and you want them to replay them. Basically, you want them to put them on their newswire and send them out so you can get publicity, so people are talking about your organization and what you're doing, and preferably in a positive light because you have issued the statement and you've done it in a way that makes you look good. And of course, the goal is always to maintain a positive image, maintain or create, whichever the case may be. So companies use this very heavily. A lot of them they're really shameless in how they do it. They'll issue multiple press releases a day about anything. CEO high five someone in the cafeteria and they want to write a press release about it. It's really is kind of a sham a lot of times, and you can read them and say, why in the world did the company release this? But anyways, a big reason is that it's free. I mean, if you can get other media outlets to basically put things in their journals or into their publications for free, it's usually good. You may have heard the term that there's no such thing as bad publicity. To an extent, there's some truth there. I mean, if people are talking about you, at least they're talking about you as opposed to not. Even if it's bad, a lot of times in the long run, it can be a good thing. We'll talk a lot more about that theme, but anyways, it's a free way that companies can get their name in the paper. And as far as messaging, the big thing to remember is that it's all about control. Companies can control the message if they post it themselves. They can get ahead of the guy who didn't show up for work. And it's not like my company went out and said, oh my God, has anyone seen this person? We're going crazy. We've lost a key leader. No, we said, oh, he spent, this time here and we really appreciate everything he's done. We've mutually decided to part ways. And so control of the message is key. Again, probably sounds very political, and it is. Controlling the message is, you need a lot of political savvy to do this kind of job. So yes, companies always want to be ahead of things. You don't want a story to come out about you without having already done something about it. I guess one story I can tell is one time I was up on Lake Winnipesaukee, New Hampshire, and I happened to be with the head of marketing for Genzyme. And we were out on the boat, and then all of a sudden she gets a phone call. And it was basically, pull up the anchor, we got to go, because they were about to go through a merger with Sanofi Aventis, which is a major French firm. And she said, I've got to go, and we have to issue a press release right now before anyone else says anything about this. There was something going on with the merger. There was some sort of problem. She's like, I got to go. So it was actually kind of neat to be around that. And the goal of these press releases is that companies pick them up, or companies issue them, and they hope that media outlets rerun them. They pick them up and rerun them so they can get publicity. And the reason that they use media outlets like this is because media outlets like, the Wall Street Journal and CNN, et cetera, they're seen as objective, and it can be seen as it can have a much greater impact than just running a commercial. And that's why you see a lot of times in the newspaper, you'll see these things called paid advertisements, and they'll say, oh, it's meant to look like a journalist is writing it, but in reality, it's a company writing as if a journalist is writing it, and it's of course all positive things and wonderful, and it's about a product and how great it is. Because people are more receptive to what they consider to be objective. And generally, the media outlets are seen like that. And then finally, companies have control over their own press releases. However, media outlets, once they get it, I mean, if people know what they're doing, a lot of media outlets they're understaffed, and I'm talking about places like the Wall Street Journal. The Wall Street Journal will get a press release, and they'll analyze it, and they'll say, okay, why are they issuing this? And they may rerun it, they may not, but they'll put their own spin on it, and they'll be saying, oh, this is what they're really trying to say. But again, getting ahead of it is the best thing a company can do, and they can issue it. They can start to control the narrative. But once they release it, I mean, the media is the media. They can choose to run what they want. I mean, short of, plagiarizing or I'm forgetting the term. I mean, you can't, libel. You can't lie. But the media outlets can basically do whatever they want once they get that press release. But it's always beneficial to get ahead of it as an organization when there's any sort of story. All right, then finally, the last thing we're going to cover in this chapter is the push versus pull concept. Now, this is extremely important. All right, we're going to talk a lot more about distribution in coming chapters. And this really is an element of that as well. So the push versus pull concept. So manufacturers, so that means producers, people are actually creating a good. They develop different promotional mix for each segment of the distribution channel. So what does that look like? You know what, I'm not going to get too far into that right now because it is going to be very prevalent in future chapters. But anyways, if you're producing a good, there's a distribution chain, there's a distribution channel. So for example, let's say, just think about my salsa. Let's say I was a little more advanced than I really am, and I had, a warehouse, all right? And this warehouse, obviously I wouldn't own the warehouse. They would buy my product, and then the warehouse is really in charge of then getting it out to other places. So other retailers, like different grocery stores or different, mom and pop places or wherever. There's different intermediaries is what they're called in the distribution channel. So the push versus pull concept really comes into play here. As a manufacturer, as a producer of goods, you have relationships with not only the retailers, but also the intermediaries like the warehouses and the wholesalers and things like that. And you'll have a specific strategy. So you'll use your promotional mix differently within that distribution channel. And that may not make sense right now, but I'll get a little bit more into it and it'll make sense in the future. But the one thing I want you to understand is, again, push versus pull. So imagine I am trying to sell my salsa, all right? And I've got these people in the middle who are, warehousing it. And, what do they want? They want to buy my product and then get it out as soon as they can too, all right? Because they're going to make a percentage. They make money too. They want to get product out the door. They don't want it just sitting on their shelves. They don't make money when that happens. The same way a retailer would. Like grocery stores, they don't want things to just sit on their shelves. They don't make money when things don't sell. So they're incentivized to move things, and if things aren't selling, they're going to buy less of it. So as a producer, I need to incentivize everyone along that chain, to push my product out the door. And there's two ways to do it. You can either use the push policy to promote goods. And pushing means you're pushing it through the distribution channel. So you are going to incentivize or make it beneficial for your intermediaries to sell more. So you're going to do things like, you know what? Warehouse wholesaler, you people who are selling to the retailers, um, I'm going to give you $1 for every one of my units that you sell in this month. And they're like, heck yeah, we're gonna promote the heck out of this. We're really gonna get on the phone. We're gonna call all the grocery stores and we're gonna tell them this is a great deal. This is a great product. We're gonna sell as much as we can. You are pushing your product through the distribution channel. That's a push policy. And the pull policy is just the opposite. That's when you're marketing to consumers. That's when you're doing things like commercials that are going to reach your end consumers. So those are people who are going to shop at the stores who are going to buy your product. Because, again, those grocery stores, they only make money when your product is flying off the shelf. So they are going to say, oh, geez, we've sold a whole lot of Mr. Hillman's salsa and we need to buy more. So that will pull it through the distribution channel. So there's push versus pull. Some companies will be really good. Some organizations are really good at managing all levels of that. They incentivize both the intermediaries, like the wholesalers, the warehouses, to push things through, and they also do a good job marketing. You can do one well and do well. You can do both well. I mean, that's ideal, but that's the major difference between push versus pull. It's very, very, very important to understand, especially when we start talking about distribution or place as the one of the 4 Ps in future chapters. So again, the pull policy focuses on consumer demand to pull product through the distribution channel. Okay, good. So let's review our objectives. We're through this part. So first of all, what are the 5 elements of the promotional mix that companies use? The second thing, why do companies use press releases? What are they used for? Why do companies use them? And finally, describe and differentiate push versus pull promotional strategies. You don't need to tell me what they are specifically, but what is the main idea between using a push strategy or using a pull strategy? What does it mean? How are they different? All right. Excellent, guys. That's only a few slides in that one, but that is 17.2. Be sure to check Classroom. I'm going to put something out there that'll go along with this content. So if you have questions, email me as always. Let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you guys soon.